to this week's issue of Heritage Matters. And this week, we are going to have with us Ras Sankofa Maccabee and Ras Bora. They will be joining us shortly to talk about things happening in the Rastafari community and let us know a bit about what they have been doing. I understand they've had some events recently which were quite successful, and also to let us know what their plans are for the months coming up. So hopefully shortly we will have Ras Sankofa and Ras Bora with us. Since we were here last, I think we've had quite a lot of rain in St. Kitts. The weather has been rather bountiful in terms of rain, except of course that it created flooding in some areas. That part we regret. But I think we are always glad for the rain, and for me it's a pleasure driving through the countryside and passing the rivers and seeing them running almost constantly. That's something we haven't seen in a very long time. The rivers flowing down to the sea with a constant supply or flow of water. What that is doing for us is not only topping up our water supply in terms of our reservoirs and catchments and so on, but importantly, it also makes sure that there's lots of water in our soil. I think you can recall a few years ago, we had a situation where the water levels, the aqueducts, what's the name of it now? The water table. The water table was going so low. Aquifers, that's the word I want. The aquifers in the water table were getting so low, it was almost at danger level. Danger level meaning that if it went any further down because of our own consumption, we would actually begin to hit salt water. And once we do that, it will ruin the whole aquifer. So the water department had a very stringent task of ensuring that they monitor and control the water supply to those areas that were dependent on the aquifers, so that does not happen, and it seemed as though they were successful in doing so. Hopefully, with the rains we've been having recently, the aquifers should be quite well supplied and topped up. I recall driving areas, for example, there's an aquifer on the Bastille and extending out into the area of ponds pasture, as we call it, and also towards the Frigate Bay area, that large area we call it the Royal Bastille Valley National Park. And I was surprised to see for the first time in a very long time, after rains, water had collected on the surface of the soil there. So you literally had ponds being created by the volumes of rain that we've had, and wonderfully those have soaked in, and I guess waiting for the next shower, and that would keep things topped up. It is surprising how much water can be supplied by rain. When you see the volumes of water coming down in the guts, you tend to wonder, where did all that water come from a shower of rain? And it's not just one gut. You drive through the island and you'd see the guts and the rivers all flowing, and flowing pretty heavily. In Bastille, we've had the College Street gut and the Westbourne gut flowing, and College Street a couple of times was quite heavy, to the point where the water, especially when it reached down to the Bay Road and passing under that pedestrian bridge, that's the last part of the gut before it enters the sea. The water was extending from end to end of the bridge, and that was a lot of water. And we had a people who approached that gut and found themselves in some difficulty because the water had stalled their vehicles. And so I would like to issue a little word of advice to motorists. When the guts are flowing, especially heavily, be extremely cautious about traveling. It's not just about water getting into your engine and causing it to flood and stall, but there's also things that can be in the water that you may not see. You might be going across and you don't know there's a boulder rolling in the water below the surface and can hit your car and not only damage it, but it can also send it on a trajectory down towards the sea, which you can't stop because your vehicle is stalled and the water is just simply pushing it down the road. I've seen some videos of things coming down in the water, garbage bins and drums and all sorts of bits of debris and tree branches and stuff like that. So there's lots of stuff that can come down in that water. So one has to be extremely careful when crossing those. And you don't want to get stuck in that. I can recall some years ago we had a hurricane, and that river we call Bloody River. There was a couple, I think, who was trying to pass that because they wanted to get home, understandably. But apparently on their way across, the water swept their vehicle over the edge, and they were swept out to sea. So it's very important to pay attention when those guts and so on are flowing, that we stay clear of them and make sure we don't put ourselves in any danger or put anyone else in danger, as a matter of fact. But we're glad for the rains. It'll be good to hear from the water department how that has been impacting our water supply. I'm sure there's very little cases of inadequate storage at the moment for the immediate situation. But I do hope that there is full advantage being taken of the amount of water that's being supplied by the rain. And of course the agriculture people, they, I'm sure, are smiling. When we look across the landscape of St. Kitts, you can see, and I've heard so many people comment on it, that within about 2 days, what was a dry looking landscape turned into a lush green landscape, just like that. And that's one of the miracles that I find happens in St. Kitts very often. The soil, you know, we talk about St. Kitts being a very fertile island. In fact, the Caribs, or the Kalinago as we call them, call the island Liamwiga. And it is reputed that they called it that, meaning fertile island. So even the Caribs knew that this island was one of those that was very resilient in terms of its fertility in the soil. And therefore, as some people would jokingly say, if you stick your finger in the soil, it would sprout branches. And when the Europeans came, they found it to be a very valuable place to plant sugarcane, cotton, tobacco, and so on. They planted these stuff, and it was said that the yield, especially for sugarcane, was higher in St. Kitts than for most of the other territories around where they were planting. So there was quite a bit of use of that, because when they discovered that St. Kitts was so fertile, they made sure that they made great use of it. And of course, when you intensively plant up an area, it may tend to lose some fertility because the plants are rapidly using up the nutrients in the soil. And that's where fertilization comes in. So even though you have fertile soils, if you do intensive planting, over time you'll find that the soil loses some of its nutrients, and therefore it needs to be replenished. That's also why the knowledgeable planters and so on created a kind of cycle whereby, let's say, for example, they were doing sugar cane. You don't just keep planting sugar cane on a plot of land forever and ever, because after a little while the yield is going to go down. So what you had to do was you would cycle your crops so that you will then take out the sugar cane after X amount of ratoon, you call it, and then you plant something that would replace the nitrogen in the soil, which is one of the big components of soil fertility. And leguminous plants, for example, peanuts was one such used, so that they would plant peanuts in the soil on these open lots. And there was a time when St. Kitts used to produce a lot of peanuts as a result of that, because the peanuts were used to replenish the soil and give it a little breather between sugarcane plantings. So, well, of course, now we don't have sugarcane. And I'm also, I would use the word appalled that we have not properly utilized the land that was on the sugarcane. Most of the farms are closed. I traverse this island. Many of you have heard of the Hash. We run through the fields and the mountains and the guts and everywhere. And I can see a noticeable, very, very noticeable decline in agricultural activity in St. Kitts. We used to have lots of farms, especially above the cane field areas. Those are going. Even some areas that were dedicated as farming areas, for example, down in Foyes, near Newton Ground. That area used to be like one big farm from the main road right up to the mountain. Now you drive up there, you hardly see anything going on. There are one or two farmers who might plow a plot. They seem to plant something and then it's not maintained, like they don't have time because they're doing other things, maybe running a bus or so. But what I've realized is that people are, as it were, moving away from jobs like farming, because they're finding other ways now to make a living that may be less labor intensive, less strenuous. And so they are going to work, let's say, for example, for the hotels and do landscaping. Or they may start their own landscaping business, start taking care of people's lawns and so on. Quicker, easier money than the hard work of farming. But I've noticed, though, that there are a number of farmers who are continuing with it and, in fact, stepping up their game. So, for example, during History and Heritage Month, we had a talk by a gentleman from Nevis who operates a farm there, but he does things like hydroponics and so on, so that there's a modern way of farming which produces some fairly high yields and extremely high quality. Just this morning I was looking at a video of another fairly young guy in Nevis who is also has a farm, which I think he's operating since about 2019, and he produces a lot of excellent quality lettuce and so on. He's supplying them to the supermarkets here and in Nevis, and he has them nicely packaged. So instead of just buying an open head of lettuce, he has them nicely packaged in plastic Ziploc bags, well labeled with the name of his farm and the product, so that you can go in and buy a nice fresh bag of lettuce to put on your table, nice, green and luscious. And then we also have farms in St. Kitts that are doing similar activity. And the gentlemen who are to join us today, Ras Bora and Ras Sankofa, they also operate what they call the Gideon Organic Farm. They plant and practice the use of lots of fruits, vegetables, and herbs. And we also visited their farm, and that farm, I was surprised. It was large and fully planted. You could find almost anything there. and you can see they have a dedication, a joy in terms of their connection with the land, with nature, with farming, with supplying healthy food to people. And they themselves, they try to eat healthy. I'm sure you know the Rastas, they like to talk about their, what do they call it again? ITAL, their vegetable-based diet, which many find very delicious and some satisfying. So we have those folks planting lots of stuff there, and some things of which aren't very well known to most people. The other day, just this week, I was passing an area in the countryside, and I saw a cashew cherry tree on the way. And I saw it had lots of cashews on it. These cashews were looking nice, and some were a yellow type of cashew fruit. Others, there was another tree with some reddish ones, which is the more popular one that you tend to see. And so I pulled my vehicle over and stopped and decided to avail myself of some of these lovely looking fruit, and realizing that no one bothers with them, because every day hundreds of cars pass that same area and nobody stops and worries about them. The only people that, let me change that word, the only creatures that seem to pay attention are the monkeys. And that's a whole other story. But the monkeys would stay there. And as a matter of fact, one guy stopped not because he saw the tree, because he lives in the area and he passed it all the time. And he said to me he didn't even know it was there, but he stopped because he saw me. So he was wondering what I was doing, and so on. So he stopped to find out. And I told him, yeah, I'm picking some cashew cherries. He said, oh, you could eat those? He was like surprised. And I said, of course. And I said, and you see that nut? And you buy in the supermarket what we call cashew nuts. This is where the cashew nut comes from. It grows inside that seed that you see above the fruit. And he picked one of the fruits and he tried it and he said, oh, this tastes good. And he said, I think they'll call this monkey cherry. And no wonder, because it seems as though people have relegated the cashew fruit to just a fruit that the monkeys enjoy. And we as humans, we don't seem to pay a lot of attention to the cashew anymore. And right there, we started talking, because by that time now, his mother was passing in another vehicle, saw us and stopped. And you'd be surprised, a lot of other people were passing and stopping and looking and wondering what was happening here. And in many cases, we just had to tell them, no, just keep going. It's just that we're picking some fruits, because they see people gathering and they're wondering, what's the occasion? And they wonder whether they can join in or not. You know, people love a party. But we stayed there and we talked about old days, what we used to do and so on. And especially trying to give the young people a sense for what used to be, in that we used to eat all these type of fruits. There's so many fruits that the youngsters nowadays don't know, because they are only focused on what is available in the supermarkets and not really what is available in our local fields and even in our yards. Many people don't plant fruits and vegetables in the yard anymore. Of course, they've relegated that job to the supermarket. You simply go in, put them in your cart, go to the cashier and pay. And that's the end of that story. But yes, I know it's difficult to plant, but you can have a few things and enjoy the pleasure of seeing your produce come. For example, a coconut tree in your yard, you get nice fresh coconut water, or even something like a banana tree. It puts out a nice hand of bananas and you feel so good eating bananas that you have produced, and you can actually share with your neighbor, because a hand of banana is a lot of bananas. And when the bananas start to ripen, you will find that you have a lot of fruit that you can't handle, so it's best to share them with others. And so we talked a lot about how we used to, the things we used to eat, and how we used to run about in the bush and so on, barefoot, and all these different things. So it was a little fun time talking with the youngsters and so on, and establishing that kind of historical bond. So right now, we are going to take a commercial break and we'll be right back on Heritage Matters.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
It's the start of the week. It's time for a new perspective. It's time for Unfiltered. Join Azar Gums, lawyer and deputy leader of the People's Action Movement, for raw and unfiltered political analysis of the current events in St. Kitts and Nevis. Tune in every Sunday evening from 7:30 p.m. on Win FM. Join Azar Gums as he breaks the mantle and cuts through the unfiltered political noise to bring you the facts. Unfiltered every Sunday evening on Win FM 98.9.
Insurance Company Limited, where you get more coverage for less.
Campari, Red Passion, embrace the mix.
Campari, Red Passion, full action, this is Red Passion. Embrace the mix, add Campari, make it turn and twist. Add your chaser in your drink. Campari, Red Passion, make the nicest mix. Campari.
Campari Red Passion. Embrace the mix. Must be 18 years or older to drink. Drink responsibly.
Okay, good morning, everyone again. Welcome back to Heritage Matters. And as indicated earlier, we now have with us Ras Sankofa and Ras Bora. They are not only from the Rastafarian community, but they are also from the Gideon Organic Farm. Gideon Force Organic Farm. And so I want to welcome them. Gentlemen, you could probably give a little introduction of yourself.
Yeah, well, good morning. Give thanks, glory to the Father, His Son, Yahshua, Emmanuel, the Messiah, and Emperor Lislas the First. We give thanks for being here with Brimstone Hill Society, and we just ready to just give the nation a reasoning still and an understanding of life in the garden, you know?
I like that, life in the garden.
Yes, greetings to all the listeners. And we give thanks for even the opportunity to have a chance to even, give our own way of doing things back to the community. And we want to definitely give as much advice as we can, and we're also open for advice also. So I give thanks for the presenter to have us here, and we hope to have a blessed show. Amen. And Ras Bora too.
Okay, thank you, Ras Bora and Ras Sankofa. And just for the listeners, if you wish to in to the show, the numbers to call are 466-0989. That's 466-0989 or 662-0989. 662-0989. And for those who need to call from the US or Canada, it's 305-921-4619. That's 305-921-4619. And there's one more number, 718-285-6984. And I'll repeat that one, 718-285-6984. So if you have any comment or question or input, just give us a call at any of these numbers and we'll be glad to take your call. So we turn now to our guests, Ras Bora and Ras Sankofa. Now, I was mentioning earlier to the folks who were listening that we're going to have you on the show. and that we're going to get from you a little bit about the activities you have recently undergone and how they came off and what the results were. So give us an idea of the activities that you had recently and let us know how they came off. And give the public also a sense of what the events were in aid of and what they were to do.
Yes, give thanks. I would just start off by giving a little reading of His Majesty still. You know, His Majesty said discipline of the mind is the basic ingredient to genuine morality, you know. So that's Haile Selassie words. And he also speak of leadership in a way like this. His Majesty say, a true leader is one who realizes by faith that he is an instrument in the hands of the Almighty and dedicates himself to be a guide and inspirer of the nobler sentiments and aspirations of the people. He will kindly kindle interest, teach, aid, correct, and inspire. Those whom he leads will cooperate with him in maintaining discipline for the good of the group, and he will instruct his fellow followers in the goal towards which to strive, and creating them a sense of mutual effort for the attaining of the goal. I just say that there to big up all the leaders out there, because being in a position of leadership, you have to have so much morality and so much faith in the Almighty. And sometimes there are certain things that you cannot fix, so you have to leave in the hands of the Almighty. And He Himself will secure that path for you. You see it? So I want to thank all those who took the time out and took the calling to be a leader and maintain to be a leader. And you know, as we have Ras Bower here, our manager, that's a leadership position. And we give thanks for such an individual and his maintenance of the cooperative that we are a part of. In answering your question now, I would still say that the event that we had was just phenomenal. That's the only word I can use, because we had over 130, maybe close to 150. At least all of us, including the staff, would have been 150 persons and over 130, you know, elderly there. It was an elderly day event that the cooperative have been doing for, this would have been probably either the third elderly day, you know, and it's Elder Earl Clark on radio, calling when we was on radio. And he introduced this idea to I and I. Not to say we have never thought about helping the elder, but specifically towards this particular energy was Elder Earl Clark. So we actually, from the first instance, we gave it the name Earl Clark Elderly Day as a tribute and a respect to the elder. So he get to be there at the first one in living colors. And then the second one, I think he passed away. So we just, in honor of him, we asked for his family to be there and give them a contribution towards the whole meditation still. So this is where we bring all the elders around the community to a place. Gideon Force Farm is the place, organic farm, and where we actually take care of them, fulfilling a part of our creed, which is, our creed is that the hungry be fed, the naked clothed, sick nourished, age protected, and the infants cared for. So we took the age protected and we made it an event called the Age Protected Elderly Day, the Age Protected. That's basically how we set up on the flyers. And we try to protect them on that day. We try to care them on that day. We try to feed them on that day. And we try to fulfill the other things of the creed to the elderly on that day. Because it's important that we check for the elderly, because life is a circle. At the beginning, you're a child, and then you're going to go into midlife, and then you're going to go to be the age. And in our life, we should be protected while we are young, while we're in the middle, and while we're old. And so much times I see the elderly being neglected. There will have to be consideration to have other persons do such things and do it on a more stronger scales so that every week the elder them have something to look forward to because they love it. You know, so that's basically the purpose, the energy I would give. I will leave out some things so that Boa can have a say same still too, you know.
But one quick question. Where were these elderly folks selected from across the island or from a particular area?
Okay, yeah. Most of these elderly was given to us by aging.
Oh,
A letter
Department
was
of
sent out
Aging
to
and Disability?
aging, yeah, through the secretary, which in Makeda, you're doing a great job in that area there right now still. So happy to have a person like you still there. And we definitely got most of them from the aging department.
Okay, yeah,
so they organize
they
even
do a kind of,
transportation for them and everything.
that's
So
wonderful,
from aging alone was over at least 70. So that's almost half. That's more than half, technically. So then the other ones would have come from other private institutions. We didn't even get nobody from Cardi home this time around. The reality, we usually get so much. So imagine if we had that code here too.
And for this event, does the Gideon Force or whichever organization is organizing it, do they supply all the food and beverage for?
We
for the
supply
event?
we try to get the transportation assisted to the Department of Education, and we also supply all the food and vegetable from Gideon Force. A lot of the vegetable from the farm, but sometimes we have to go and buy, of course, the rice, the flour, the whatever we use in, not really flour, we don't use nothing with flour for the elderlies.
Okay.
And squash, banana, we will have it. And we'll have the coconut, so we'll still have to might get an onion or garlic because we have all the other fresh seasoning. So it's still not as costly if it wasn't a farm doing it.
Yes.
Because the food is the most expensive thing on that day to feed
And
over
you
130 people
mostly
for
natural
free.
foods
It's
that
not
you supply.
easy.
Yeah, I know. That's why I asked you where the food
So
comes from.
financially, it don't be a burden for us because it's something that we want to do, and we set ourselves to make sure that we're in a good position to do it every
That's
time.
wonderful.
Yeah, it's an important factor in our events that we usually have, and we love it.
Wonderful. So, Rasbora, tell us about
so I would discuss the other events that we had for the last maybe 2-3 weeks. And we have we call organic markets, and we have this at least every quarterly of the year. And the whole idea for the organic market actually is to allow us to meet new customers and allow new customers also to meet us. Not just Gideon Force, but we have a selection of different vendors that have natural items, and they also get a chance to be exposed also as small entrepreneurs. So we have this event starting from February, where we had our first market, but we had it named Kaya, as because on that particular market we would have a little more emphasis on the herbs itself, the cannabis, how you want to call it, the marijuana. We have that a little more highlighted, even though we have everything still will remain as a normal market. But that day we had a little more items, some special items, and even having these plants and display and even the finished products. So that would have been into February, and we're going to have it every February because we're still looking at Black History Month, giving us a chance to have that clashing, and we're looking at Bob Marley also, who born in that month. And we see Bob Marley.
Bob Marley was what month?
In February.
February also? I thought it was May.
No, 6
He died in May.
Yeah, I think he might have died in May.
Okay, that's what makes sense.
And he, for us, is like he being one of the heroes within the Rasta community, in terms of especially spreading His Majesty word. You know, you would never see Bob have a show on here and start with His Majesty or have it in his background with a picture. So while we're representing ourselves, we want to also look at our past ancestors who have done a lot of work. So Black History and who give us a chance to reflect on those in our federation, but we still highlight Bob. And so we call it Kaya, because he had this beautiful song speaking about the house, you have to have it now, and we know how important it is when you need it, you know. So so that day in February we do have it, and then we have one also into May, and we have in May also is a time that we recognize and represent His Majesty in the victory day within Ethiopia and the battle with Italy. And so that direct May 5th we have a spiritual gathering at the church, because we have a church on the farm also, but we have a market also to represent. We have a few different items, a few different events. We have like a week of activities practically. And the market day is one of the days that we have to be a part of that weekend event. So we had that actually in the 11th of this month. So I already gone about, I think it would have been on the Mother's Day, even though we don't represent Mother's Day. But it was on that day, and I will say every time we have a market, it's always a beautiful event because we always have new customers, and we actually always have new vendors too, and it gives us a chance to, because we have to come together and we have to have understanding, you know. So we're gonna have at least 2 more for the year. The next one might be by Sam Cooper's house in September, and we have by Elder Phillips Slips International in Tabernacle. So I don't know if we make the full decision which area we're going to have it, but that's going to be our next organic market, and we hope that people understand why we have in this market. It ain't just about sales, but it's about letting you know we have natural things available. And our challenges right now with health is how we consume, what we expose to. So I think that this event, they are really great ideas, and I think Sam Kofos would have been the idea in the early part of the group. And it had seemed like it would have been hard to deal with, but right now I think is a blessed moment for our health and our
Wonderful,
people.
wonderful. Rasankofa, congratulations, and to the rest of you on such successful events. Any others that you had recently?
Well, other than that, will be spiritual. You know, I think Sankofa speak about the elderly there already. So, we have a lot of what you call like spiritual. Cause we are a spiritual group, churchical, and so we celebrate most of His Majesty events and even the Christ. You know, cause we Christ is our Lord and Savior. So, like Passover, Nativity Day, like we will say Christmas. So we have our spiritual. These are things that happen normally within the year, but these are the major activities we have. We will have small little activities in between, like maybe catering for some group want to come and spend it then. But other than that, these are the major ones that we do have.
Okay, good.
We have a May 5th event, so we had a more recent event, but that is all free. We provide all the food for whoever come to that event.
Wow.
It's more to explain and give you educational feedback and show you the spiritual and material connection to the actual liberation day in Ethiopia, which was May 5th, 1941, when they liberated themselves against the Italian aggression. And to see a nation that was never conquered before in life, this is very high historical value, because Ethiopia is the only free nation of earth, meaning that it never been conquered. You see, they tried to invade, and for 4 years they actually they had pieces of the land, but they never had the whole land under their control. This is Italy. So here now you have a dynamic going on, because both of these nations are supposed to be Christian. And then you have a Christian nation who's supposed to be a Christian invading another Christian nation, which was the first Christian nation biblically, because if you know the story of the Ethiopian eunuch and Philip, then you will know that Ethiopia being a Christian from right months after Christ himself would have been resurrected according to the story. You see it? So then when you check out the history now, how another Christian nation is going to come after a Christian nation, one have to be Satan and one have to be God, representing God. And I'm not going to come out and say who's on whose side, but the victorious was one at the end. Was Ethiopia, and God was directly on the side of Ethiopia. So we have to give thanks for that history there and recognize Ethiopia as our leader spiritually.
Who was the ruler of Ethiopia at the time?
Only one ruler they could have.
I just want to hear you say it.
His Emperor Haile Selassie is the ruler at the time, and he was the one who actually, one of the first leaders in the world to ever leave from his throne, go into exile, and was able to go back and sit upon the throne of David. And he ruled Ethiopia for 58 years. 44 years, you know, from 1930 to 1974 when he disappeared. That would have been 44 years. But then when you take off the 4 years of exile, you get 40 years. And if you look at King David, 40 years, 7 years in Hebron, 33 years in Jerusalem. When you look at Moses, 40 years he ruled in Ethiopia, not in Egypt. 40 years. When you look at some of the other ancient kings, you know, Solomon, 40 years of rulership, same way still. So all the great leaders and great kings of biblical, and I'm talking biblical because Ethiopia is biblical, it's just that they took it out of the Bible. But if you read the Keba niggas, and they didn't take it out of the Bible because Ethiopia is mentioned in the Bible as a nation more than any other part. But they don't go into the history. They just mention Ethiopia. So that's just a history that we have to check for our spirituality to the realms of Ethiopia. And then you'll understand the Christianity even better.
Right. Now, something I heard you say there
Orthodox.
that had me asking a question. You said he ruled for 40 years until he disappeared.
Yeah.
What happened there?
It's a lot of mystery, so even if we speak it, it's just for one to have the faith in it. I went to Ethiopia in 2007, and according to the teachings, what I received from certain persons in the monasteries, they say Mengistu captured His Majesty, and he was captured in an area for a while, close to the palace. He wasn't really in the palace, but he was close to the palace. And then there was a day that His Majesty went to church, meaning that they would allow him to go out every Sunday to deal with the worship, and sometimes on a Saturday, because they also hold the sabbatical too. And then when he went to the church, it's a specific church he went to, Stephanis, for Stephen, the one who...
St. Stephen.
Martyrdom.
Yeah,
Okay.
martyrdom. And when he went inside that church there, he went inside the church and he never came back out. But there was some people say a lion, some people say a small cat, came back out. But not to say that His Majesty turned into a cat, It just like is a reference in that, one gone forward, then after that, they said that he was seen in a part of Ethiopia that is miles away from that spot, which was an area they call, I can't remember the actual name of it, but he's going to come back in the interview and I'm going to say it. But he was found riding on a donkey, chatting out.
So at that time, when he disappeared, was he still king of Ethiopia, or ruler, I should say?
He couldn't have been ruler because it was a coup d'etat at the time. That's why they actually took him over, and he was in a technical form imprisoned.
Oh, so he kind of
was
went into exile or imprisoned.
Yeah, he was imprisoned.
He was imprisoned. Okay.
So they used to give him the respect still for him to go. 40 family members died the same night that they imprisoned His Majesty. They went and they just, like 60 of them actually, not 40, 60. They killed 60 of his family members because they just wanted to kill the whole lineage. It's an Ethiopian history, you could check it out. That part they know, everybody mightn't see it like that. Some people believe he died. Some people believe he disappeared. Even in Ethiopia, I'm not just telling you, it's not a no joke thing.
Yeah.
This man was great like that. Some people in Ethiopia, just like how Rasta not start in the Caribbean. Rasta start in Ethiopia. There was people who was hailing His Majesty while he was living in Ethiopia. There's people that even who was part of the Orthodox Church, they went and they started to hail His Majesty because they saw that they saw a higher divine energy. The first church, Haile Selassie Church, established was in Kenya, even before we were done fully established in the Caribbean. You see, because it took a while for it to be established in the Caribbean.
Yeah, I think and maybe a lot of people get the impression that Rastafarianism started in the Caribbean.
But yeah, that's it manifests through the Caribbean, but it would have started in Ethiopia.
But I want to cut it. I think I wouldn't agree with it from that angle, because I don't know if you're looking at just the name Rastafari, but you look at the culture or the appearance in terms of the beards, the locks. It go much more than way back in the biblical way, because a Nazarite, a Nazarene, even before Nazarene, because who would have been cutting here from Cain and Abel time? So automatically we had to be growing locks. Let's be realistic. And we know that this sort of, way of look we heard about it in the Pharaoh dynasty, which more the Gentiles. But we as the people of the Almighty, this is our appearance all the time. I mean, ain't like we just come up, we just that after colonialism, a lot of things had our minds so straight up far away. But we here representing, because if Christ would have been here, you think Christ would have come here, he come here with locks and beards. I mean, you ever see a picture of Christ on TV, even though they may show a different color, he always have a lot of hair, and he have a lot of beards. Right, and if he had, and we know he had to be a black person. I mean, realistically.
Yeah, in those times, I think shaving of the hair wasn't as prevalent as it is now.
Yeah.
Most men and women grew their hair naturally,
Of course.
because that was how it occurred.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna come back. We're gonna take a break, a little commercial break, and we'll be back on Heritage Matters right after this.
Let's get real on winnfm. Hi, this is Lavi. Let's get real Wednesday nights at 8 on winnfm. Get ready for an hour of real talk that will keep you engaged and informed, bringing you insights, the hottest topics of the moment, and perspectives that matter from the runway to the political arena. Real talk with Lavi covers all.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Ready to save while you build? Now you can at Builders Paradise. Yes, shoppers, build up your Value Club points at Builders Paradise. That's right, Value Club members and shoppers, your favorite frequent buyer club is now available at the home of hardware and more. Whether you're laying tiles, painting walls, replacing doors, upgrading windows, or fixing up your home, every purchase at Builders Paradise now earns you Value Club points. Enjoy exclusive benefits like discounts on thousands of items, special savings for seniors, instant deals, quarterly rebates, plus an extra up to 2% off every quarter. Shop more, save more, and more only at Builders Paradise. Don't miss out. Start building your rewards today with Value Club at Builders Paradise, because every bolt, board, and brush brings you closer to bigger, better savings. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, folks, welcome back to Heritage Matters. And with us today, we have Ras Sankofa and Ras Bora of the Gideon Force Organic Farm and of the Rasta movement of St. Kitts and Nevis. And we're having an interesting chat with them. We're just talking about their what you refer to Selassie as your hero, your...
No, man, I would even say His Majesty is like a God and King for I and I still, because it's like the David King is Israel King, is Israel's God, because you have to understand that Father himself will manifest in flesh, just like Christ himself could manifest in flesh. His Majesty could carry the iris of the Most High in flesh and live a good life and a perfect life to us, to lead us unto truth and right in humanity. And when a man come and do that, we have to just give praises unto that man still, because it's like he come with the manifestation of the Spirit of God in flesh, so sometimes we don't humble ourselves to say that these things are possible, but when you see a man come like that, you just have to just give him that respect. So I don't see him as just a king. I don't see him as just a leader. I see him as the Spirit of flesh Spirit of God manifested in flesh. All of us, I guess, could try to see ourselves like that, but in reality, all of us has committed sin and fall short of the glory. You see it?
But I like to add to the elder too, and His Majesty and Christ will not be the only two that enter within the iris, because we look at the story of Melchizedek. I mean, Melchizedek, when you read it within the Hebrews, you can see that where the author turned to say that this have to be God, because he don't have no mother, no father, he don't have no history where he come from when he come. And what he did was to start this process with Abraham that will come all the way through. And at the same time, Christ said he's after the order of Melchizedek. God don't be after the order of no man, but himself. So when you look at who Melchizedek would have represented, that was God in the earth at that time, because Abraham coming from a slaughter, and he started the process of giving getting the tenth of and also blessing Abraham. So he over time, we see Christ come to and represent the fullness, and then His Majesty come and seal it. Because Father can come whenever He wants to. It's just for us, you know, either about if we accept it or not, we check it. So even the elder may be trying to, sometimes I see him trying to prove that His Majesty is God. He don't have to prove it. Because when Christ was in earth, Christ didn't get no, it wasn't so easy for Christ. Because it's His own people who crucified Him. So he ain't even strange, even though it still seems strange that He's not accepted also for His position. So, yeah.
Now, I notice your organization, the Rastafari movement, celebrates His Majesty extensively. And as we said, many people get the impression that Rastafarianism will start in the Caribbean. So what I'm wondering and asking now is, how big is the recognition and adulation of His Majesty Haile Selassie in Ethiopia itself?
Yes, blessings. What we have to understand, Ethiopian history, very ticklish, because after His Majesty in 1974, nobody could even have a picture of His Majesty in their house. The dog will come in and even slaughter your whole family if they see that. Even the flag, they try to even change up. You know, they try to take out the Lion of Judah out of the flag. You see it? And so it was a real hectic time. That time there is like similar to what the disciples then when Christ Himself disappeared. You see it? Well, He died and resurrected, I should say, still. But He had to disappear the second time still, because He ever lived. So then, it's a similar time the disciples them had to run and scatter themselves. Some went to Egypt, some went to Syria, some went up there, up north, some went up south. You know, different parts of the earth, all of them went and scattered.
India.
So it's a similar thing what happened in Ethiopia. His family had to run out of the country. Some of them had to go in Jerusalem and stay there for a while. A lot of them was exiled to America. Some of the whole of the royal Ethiopian family had to run from Ethiopia. So, and then those who left in the country, they was told so much negative things about His Majesty. Some of them actually believe and start to try to go against His Majesty. But then still the majority ones, they had to humble themselves and keep quiet and survive. Not that they did believe in the government and what they were saying. It's just that they knew that they had to survive and live to talk about it another day. So now after Mengistu went over to Zimbabwe, Mengistu might still be alive, you know, he's close to 100 years now, the guy who overtook His Majesty. And he already told him that he never killed His Majesty, because they asked him that question specifically, because there was rumor that he killed him and buried him under a thing, and he said that is not true. But that His Majesty himself, it's like there's that history about His Majesty that you have to just give that kind of respect. You know, the people them at the end now came back to themselves and recognized His Majesty for who He is. And they give that respect openly now because they have new leadership, different people. They're not communists, they live in they believe in a different way of thinking, and then the people them full respect. When I went there in 2007, I gave out so much flags at the airport, and when the people them see the flags with the Lion of Judah on it, and then another person come and still try to tell me that I shouldn't be pulling this because they saying the flag in Ethiopia no more, you know. I said this is the original flag in Ethiopia. And I end up had the flag there to sell, and I end up giving all almost at the airport. Because it's like about 50 people, once I pull out one flag, 50 people rush me and wanted a flag. And I just open up my suitcase and flag them out.
So,
you see?
So where do you all get the flags from?
I bought them, I get them from America. I did a little business with them. I sell them here in St. Kitts as well too. But
is it something that is just normally produced, or you guys specifically request the production of that flag?
No, we buy them because they sell them in America relatively cheap, so you can make it as an investment. But the sad thing about it is the Chinese flag got a little sticker, made in China. You know, as Trump will say, you know.
Well, you can't escape that anyway. Yeah.
So we got to really take over that business. I think Rasta should have really take over that business by now.
Yeah, that's why I asked if it's the all who.
So I think in the future, Rasta talking about this, because I just came from a meeting with Rasta in Caribbean Rastafari. We actually, a Rasta man from Nevis was elected as the head of this organization. It's called Caribbean Rastafari Organization, and Elder I.Y., who is also a member of the Cannabis Committee here, and also the head of the organization of Rastafari in Unity in St. Kitts. He was elected as the chairperson. So, like, you know, even though we don't have the chairmanship of CARICOM, we got the chairmanship of the Rasta organization in the Caribbean. So we stand in a good position to make things happen.
We are leaders in that
to
area.
rally around the leader.
But tell me something though. You know, you talk about there was a coup. Why did Haile Selassie fall out of favor with the Ethiopian people?
I would ask you a question. Why did Christ fall out of favor with Israel?
Well, he was talking things and doing things that was against what they call their law. And many took offense to that.
And it's the same exact answer. You see it? His Majesty wasn't doing things the way that things was done normally in Ethiopia at the time. He was going by faith and righteousness in a just cause. So some of the things of the ancient had to change. Like sometimes they have this way of land ownership and dealing with the persons, and where the system, I consider it a form of slavery. The Ethiopians might not have it as slavery, but it's some type of subservient energy. And if we stop that now, those who are nobles within the area, they're not going to be rich anymore, because these people now will have to leave from this area and go do a life for themselves and enrich themselves in other farms. So he was doing things that was contrary to what was normally set, but all the things that was set might not have been set appropriately and in the order of morality. And because here deal with genuine morality is the basic ingredient, I mean, you know, discipline of the mind is genuine morality. He always put that first. And the people them didn't understand the way that His Majesty was moving all the time. You know, when the law is in contradiction to the just cause and righteousness and true faith, His Majesty gonna rule in justice according to the ways of the Almighty. Sometimes you could have a material law that is in contradiction to what the Father Himself would want, because you wasn't the leader that made the law. You see it? And for that same reason, they come against Christ, because Christ was doing miracles and things that they couldn't do, and they thought He was a God, and then afterwards they changed their mind. You see it? And they took a robber and a thief and a liar.
They used to call him a king,
rather than him at the end. And it's a similar thing happened to Emperor.
So
Mengusta that was killing and raping the people after they so-called, because that's what they would say, got rid of His Majesty. They didn't get rid of His Majesty. His Majesty left the throne. When His Majesty moved from the throne and disappeared, Ethiopia, 6 million Ethiopians died. More than 10 million they estimate Ethiopian died after that time there, between 1974 and 1980, 80-something, because a new government came in the early 80s. So let's be realistic. If between that time there, hardly any Ethiopian was dying, only because of war situations and a normal daily life, you wasn't having them deaths in Ethiopia at all during a government. And then afterwards, a new government coming in telling you it's going to be a better day, and almost 100 times more people dead, or 200-300, and there was no war. The war was civil. It was between I and I, between all Ethiopians. There was no other nation invade you. Who was the better leader? There's no question about it.
So Mengusta, you said, was the guy who overthrew him.
Yeah, Mengusta was a demon, a sabotager.
But it seemed to me, like I also heard you say, that Mengusta seemed to have also eventually fell out of favor with the Ethiopian people.
Big time. He was never in favor with them. He was in favor of a sect that Russia and other people helped to put in. But it wasn't the majority, not at all.
Okay.
It was not the majority.
So, in other words, his deeds caught up with him then.
Yeah, I would say that, but then at the same time, for father to have him to be living close to 100 years.
So,
there's a reason
is believed that
also
he's
for
still living?
From the last time I checked that he was still living. He was living in Zimbabwe during the time of that other guy who was there too. But the other guy died, but I never heard nothing of his died. And if he died, it would have been recently. You see it?
Yeah, and especially when you talk about his possible age.
It will surely be almost 100 years.
It could mean that he might have gone, but because
he was 90-something years.
Nobody knew any about his whereabouts, they might not even know of his passing. Maybe that happening quite.
No, they know where he is. Everybody know where he is. Yeah.
Okay.
He went to Zimbabwe. He fly out and he went to Zimbabwe, and he never left there because he was the United Nations wanted him on war charges. So he couldn't leave the country, and he was being protected by that president there, who was a real warlord to himself, you know. So,
okay, yeah, all right. Now, we spoke earlier about.
And Debrecen is the area of Ethiopia where His Majesty went. I was riding on a donkey where they said they saw him leaving Debrecen.
Okay. Debrecen.
I just talking back stories that I heard.
Yeah.
I can't say for a fact that this is how it was, but I believe in them. I'll be honest. It's better for me to believe than not to believe. Because why would somebody want to make up something? And it's his history. History meaning that these been going down generation. Otherwise the story would have done stop long time.
Now, was it Ethiopia where some of the world's, in those times, biggest and best universities was established? Was it Ethiopia?
Well, they have different universities.
Timbuktu, for example.
You had Sankara, not Sankara, but the Sankori, them university. This was different parts of Africa, and they had great universities done by Zimbabwe. Then even in great places of learning also in Egypt. And you had Imhotep and all them, and they coming from Egypt. Ethiopia now was controlling most of these countries, especially Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. Wasn't Saudi Arabia, was part of the kingdom of Ethiopia. During the time of Queen of Sheba, Ethiopia were controlling the whole of Arabia, Yemen, all these nations you're hearing about with the war. Even Gaza. Gaza was a gift to the Queen of Sheba. So this big war with Gaza is not as simple as we understand it, because Gaza at one point was a colony of Ethiopia in the original state. So when you said Ethiopia back then, you're talking about the lower half of India was part of Ethiopia. Go to the Indus Valley was part of Ethiopia. The lower part, the southern part of the Indus Valley is part of Ethiopia during that glory time of Ethiopian history, where most of the things, the earth wasn't fully developed yet and everything was coming down. And then in the time of Queen of Sheba, that's 3,000 years ago. It was well developed at that point. And yet they have, I don't know if you would call them universities as such, because they're saying that the Haile Selassie University, where he took one of his palace and he made it a school, that was one of the first university in the modern times. But historically, Ethiopia always have high places of learning, which would have been in their monasteries and in their churches, after churches came. Because monasteries was there all the time, but churches only came after the type of the Messiah. You see it? Overstand the history there still. So Ethiopia have a very strong history, spiritually and materially, because the location of Ethiopia have one of the wonders of the world, which is the Nile, the Nile Valley and the Blue Nile from Lake Tana. That's a wonder of the world. And also Lalabella is another wonder. So they have like technically two.
Yeah,
the rock churches in Lalabella were carved out of rocks.
Yeah, okay.
So
right. Okay.
The highest places, man.
Good.
Psalms 87.
In terms of let's get back to the Gideon farm now.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
That
was good history, though, man.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Give thanks to the elder, yeah.
Come down to nature.
So when we come back, we can take a break now.
And go back to
When we
nature.
come back, we're going back to nature. Okay? So everyone, we'll take a commercial break now, and
But
we'll see you when we get back.
Thank you very much for giving that opportunity there. Most people don't do that.
Yeah, man, that's good,
So
man. That's a good
thanks to you
Yeah, man.
for pulling the plug and bringing it, giving us the chance to express ourselves spiritually too as well.
Yes,
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Attention, St. Kitts and Nevis. The countdown is on and time is running out. This is your final call, your last chance to save big at Hostel's Automotive during our VAT Off Drive On Blowout event. It's your final call, your last chance to get up to $15,000 in total savings. No down payment, free servicing for 12 months, free bill of sale, $1,000 in groceries, or 3 months of free gas, free registration, licensing, tinting, and accessories, and 4% VAT off on top of it all. Yes, you've heard right. Everything free and 4% VAT off. But listen closely. This incredible sale ends when June ends. No extensions, no do-overs. This is your final call. Your last chance for the biggest auto sales saving for the year. So don't walk, run to Hostel's Automotive now. Your dream car is waiting, and these deals are ready to roll. Hostel's Automotive, where affordability meets the road. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to Heritage Matters. And as mentioned before, we have with us today Ras Bora and Ras Sankofa. And they are from the Gideon Force Organic Farm. And we talked a bit about some Rastafarian history, which was quite interesting. Now we're going to move to what I would say is one of the important things to the Rastafarian movement, back to nature. All right? So they have this area. How big is it? Gideon Farm, Gideon Force Farm.
Well, it's just under 5 acres.
Under 5 acres.
Yeah, but before point, just under 5 acres.
Mm-hmm. And where is it located? Just for those who might be interested in finding it, who haven't yet.
Easy direction is to come up by the Vultures High School road, or the pasture, the Vultures pasture. Just to drive about 5 minutes from the main road. You will come, you will see definitely, well, we normally have a flag, but you will see a sign on the outside, you will see a building, and you recognize it's a garden based upon the atmosphere, the stuff that matter there in your eyesight.
And when they get there, what would they see?
Well, definitely you're going to see a building when you first come to there, but when you enter the garden, because we have already leave the stage of a farm, we at the stage of a garden.
Okay.
And when we say garden, farm, it's just maybe vegetables, but we embrace everything.
Mm-hmm.
As the elder had in a speech, it's about an ecosystem,
An
a
ecosystem.
diverse ecosystem that allow everything to exist. So what we try to do is nature manage how Father would have set it in the beginning. It's just that we have strayed a lot can actually far from the reality. So when you come, you're going to see something much different to what you normally see on a farm.
And you say you see a building. What you're housing that building?
So our building is just a shop, and there you can buy fresh vegetables. If you don't want to walk around the farm, you can just sit, and we also do what you call like a byproducts, right? We just say farm to table kind of experience, but it's just how we've been as a people, because back in our days, the elders would have everything in the yard, a pig, a goat, a sheep, a fowl, still doing farming, still doing fishing. So you always been a black people way of having everything and we're eating what you're really producing. So we have that demonstration there of more using what we're producing and having it done in a natural environment, right? So we sell byproducts. So we have ITAL, which is what we rastos we call the way of cooking. It's just to say we don't use animal products. Everything is natural and fresh too. Because fresh is very important, and it's natural is actually the most important. And so you can get beverages, you can get burgers.
So you have like a little restaurant there.
Yeah, like an eatery.
So people can come
more
there
of an eatery than a restaurant.
and get something to eat.
Yeah,
and,
but you have to put an order in for
yes.
the food because we're more in the mountain area, just to prevent wastage. So the customers, we have a lot of customers. And
so are they required to place an order before coming, or?
Yeah, place the order as before at least 10:30, so we could, because we don't want to have too much of wastage.
Now, is there a number that they can call to?
You can you can call 664-4770, 664-4695. And we are the two who manage the kitchen, like to say more the chef or the cook, and yeah, we definitely want to help those who need to have it a different way, a more healthier way to still live practically.
Okay. And earlier you already mentioned the fact that Rastafarianism isn't just a physical outward appearance, but that you're very spiritual people. What evidence? What at the farm evidences that spirituality?
Well, the fact that we try every sabbatical to gather on the farm from around 3 p.m. to the to sundown to give worship and praise unto the Creator, and we actually have a sabbatical gathering, we call it. So the farm itself is run by the elders them from the Tiwala, the house of David. You see, so it's a very, not complex, but intelligent way of thinking, because we wanted to separate the material from the spiritual, but at the same time we wanted the spiritual to have most of the say. So the way that we did that there was like allow for the Gideon force to go forward as the physical experience at the spiritual order, which is Tiwala, the house of David, which is an Ethiopian name.
And so that's what you call the congregation.
Yeah, Tiwala, the house of David, or Tiwalde.
Yeah.
House of David, which means begotten sons of David. You see it? So we know the CARP organize all the business activities and the physical activities on the farm, the tours, and setting up the farm as a business, because it's a cooperative. And then the spiritual functioning, we organize all the spiritual activity. January 7th, which is the day that the Messiah come forward, not born really, but come revealed to the earth. You see it? Revealed to the earth, that we will call that day. Ethiopians celebrate it like that. In the Catholic and other people religion, they have the 7th of the 6th of January, which is Three Kings Day, when they saw the thing, and so it will signify they went looking for him, and at a certain time some of them took a while to reach, because these kings might have come from Egypt or Ethiopia. Historically, people say it's all
come
Ethiopia.
from afar.
Yeah, they say it was Ethiopia. So by the time they reach, it would have been around that time. We are January 7th, so we celebrate that time in there to give reverence unto that year. We also celebrate. We do come together for that time, and we also come together for May 5th, and that was more Tiwala, the house of David. We gather for that day to celebrate His Majesty defeating the Italians. You see it? And then we have July 23rd, which is His Majesty date of actually coming forward and actually burning. So we celebrate that day too. And we also celebrate November 2nd, 1930. And I realize now we also doing the Passover in a spiritual way, and September 11th, Ethiopian New Year. So we have a lot of things on the farm, but all of it is just not a material thing. And what we find, even though we advertise maybe in the same way, we find that the people then come more to the party stuff, the material part, the Gideon Force part, but they're not coming to Tiwaladi part and in abundance.
You find that in the society all the time. If you want to get people even interested in a political situation, if you want to get them interested in a religious situation, if you want to get them interested in something religious, something to do with, you got to call a party. People only seem to respond to food and music.
But I will add to some call for talking about the churchical. We do we call baptizing. So you have a lot of pastors who, because we have to do the order that Christ gave us to say, we have to still go through this sort of symbolic thing that he would do and ask us to come forward. We do sanctification of the babies, which is so important for us to who don't maybe go to the churches. We sometimes engage into funerals because we have a priest, right? And so we have an order, and we hope to do weddings in the near future for any pastors who maybe hope, but we still don't want to just go and do it like openly. We just hope that when one come to us to do this, they really within the rest of.
But when it comes to things like weddings, though, I think you have to have a sort of license to.
Yeah, I think you only need to have from the courthouse. You have to just get you have something like from the courthouse.
Yeah.
That's where the preachers have to get to.
Right, exactly.
Really
so that's why I was saying there's a licensing process.
Toby didn't have a license to marry
and
his wife.
Yeah.
Who?
Tobit.
But the Bible didn't teach us about that though, because
the Bible nobody had a license.
But you see, we have to adjust to the modern requirements.
Most marriage was basically sex. Technically, when they come together and they decide with themselves, and sometimes nobody else there in the room with them, so they didn't. Most of the time they would have been respectable and still let the parents know that they become a unit or they becoming a unit. They plan to become a unit because some of these things was even arranged.
Yeah.
So but we live in a different life now.
I think the reason for the courthouse is for basically to control the assets of each person. Because sometimes you get married
to give it some teeth legally.
Yeah, legal asset. It's more about the assets. It ain't much about the love of it.
It's not the spiritual part.
No, so that's why that part come in, and as Babylon just trying to do, I know things a little different. So,
like I registered my marriage in the courthouse and probably did a local service in the courthouse, because once you register it, you got to say, oh, I married this person, and you married to her.
You have to take some
but
oaths.
Then in the next day or two, before that, my wife, when she sanctification, she baptism, and then we got married, a big Rasta energy over by Caribbean Boutique, and it was nice doing it that way for me. I think marriage is honorable, and still it'll be also good for I and I to still marry. I mean, not just legally in the system, but in front of the brothers and sisters them, so that we can know that this is the mate that you take, because
witnesses.
So it's still gonna be between the man and the woman, because that's the mystic about the sacrament. Them it's like it be done publicly, but it's actually a private reward.
But I think the public one is for notifying that these two people are together.
And
for respect it and make sure you keep it as strengthening it going forward.
For them to know. And so that a person don't just go and take another man's wife just to eat. When you say that this is your wife, sometimes that would happen a lot.
Like the body knows well.
Like Abraham had a situation where he didn't tell the king that was his wife, and then he called the king to get a judgment. So something you got to really notify it.
So it's them kind of energy. We're back to the spiritual. I like this interview here still, even though we came to talk about other things, we're talking about the real things.
Now you were saying something.
Yeah, I would say on the farm, just to really give a little more of what we do. And the elder was he been mentioned tours. I know he didn't really went too much into tours, but we do tours, and we have, for the schools, for example, school tours are free. And we hope that, because we have a lot of school to come, we had a day at the school go there like a few days ago. But we want the children to come out and have the feel of, to see from a different angle. Because sometimes over the past years, because agriculture used to see like a slavery energy coming from the colonial way, we as a people out here, in school, we always see a cutting cane, for example. Your mother will say, if you don't learn your lesson, you go to the sugar, you go cut cane.
Like punishment.
Yeah, it's like, but when you look at the whole, the most sustainable business in earth is agriculture. That's one, everything come out of agriculture. Every material, every aspect of our life. So what we try to do is inspire the youth as much as we can, and we as farmers, that's our duty, not just to produce food, but to make sure that these young men come in have the interest by seeing us do it as the example. So there you can come and see different ways, different techniques. You know, we hope to bring some more livestock to the ground that, because livestock is a part of the agriculture. Even though some of us don't eat meat, we can't condemn what Father said we can't eat. So we don't want to be, at the same time, condemning something just for our own personal. But yeah, so what we say, we do tours, we do school events, and the school events sometimes is simple as SBAs, right? And so we even ask other schools who maybe got the interest, rather than going just to Cardi, we still asking schools that they can come to our organization and help us also learn a little bit more, and we could be a little more importance to our education of our youth, because in school they don't emphasize enough on the organic part of farming, and if you don't teach the children organic farming, then they will only come out to do what they're being taught, and that's the chemical way, and that's the destructive way that we see it affecting everything.
So how do you describe organic farming?
Well, the organic, then we just the name was scientifically, but we just say natural way.
Okay.
Just the natural.
So meaning using natural methods.
Natural methods.
Rather than chemicals.
And it come from not just the insecticide, the pesticide, the fungicide, the fertilizer, but also the source of the planting material. You know, like the GMO idea, you know, we burn a fire upon these sort of ideas, you know. These are the real destructive levels that we are going at right now. They're bringing in meat that are made into lab. Even though I don't eat meat, I think that's a real problem going to hit I people. So we hope that we could really have be an example in a world where there's so much issues.
And I think more and more people around the world are beginning to realize that, yes, we took the scientific method of producing food, but in the end, I think we are seeing that it's producing certain undesirable effects and results in people's health. And therefore, there's a movement to try and get back to some degree of natural, and that's where the big word organic seems to have sprung up. And people are aiming towards that now. Now, what are some of the typical fruits and vegetables that you produce on your farm, and what are some of the not so typical ones?
Well, everything have a season. That's the first thing I must say about agriculture.
Correct.
But we at Gideon Farm, our idea is to have everything. That's the only way sustainability will have you. Because the word sustainability is not a word that we just use because we can say it, but sustainability when you have a diverse ecosystem and everything coming in season to fulfill the time. Because, for example, mango come more, like we say sunrise crops, but mango is a part of the sunrise crops. Crops that have a lot, like we come more in the summer and need a lot more sunlight. You're gonna have mango for that, but you don't have to eat mango all year too, because that could affect your even sugar intake. So God is perfect and He set it perfect. So every season have its best crop to get us through the timing.
And to sort of cycle the body.
Yeah.
Rather than eating the same thing all the time. You get what is in season.
Yeah.
And then when that season changes, you get another type of thing to
so you have to
keep
have
some variety
you can't just get all bananas
in the body's consumption.
Yeah, but the system tell you that you need everything at the same time, all the time, anytime. You could get it anywhere, anyhow, or wherever. So you create all these systems to get it like that. But the food come diseased. Because it's out of season still. We have that problem with tomato here in St. Kitts. Tomato only go better at a particular time, no matter what you do. And when you plant it outside of the season, it's very diseased. So much chemicals you have to buy to grow the damn tomato. Sometimes when the tomato do come, you know, you can't make the money. Well, not for me, because I never plant like
effective.
that. I'm always organic. You know, so we're going to remain organic. Not the health, the strength, the wisdom, the knowledge, but also for the little income, because it's an extra salary. Because people now have to pay for that extra caring.
Yeah, so you have we talk about natural processes and so on, and we know that in most of the modern farm situations, the big word is fertilizers, right? And when you think of fertilizer, you think of chemicals. How does your organization view that, and what steps you take to avoid that?
I would say that we truthfully have the knowledge, but I think that weakness sometimes with the application of our knowledge, sometimes we have situations where we're not producing at the level that we're supposed to, because we have to be honest. But there's sometimes when we apply the knowledge that we have, because we have the knowledge is not the issue. You see it? When we get massive crops, great crops, because I see so much pak chai, lettuce grow in such a high level, but then you see other crops where we don't give them enough liquid fertilizer, because you have a drip system now, and it's set up in a different way than just how we normally would have like a bed system. You can't just throw a lot of manure on it, because it's like, it's a drip system, and it might be under these black mat thing and whatever. So it's like, so you have to use liquid fertilizer. And I see we just need to improve with that there, our liquid fertilizers, because we know what we can do. There's a combination there that I do use directly, and I told the manager as well too, with the seaweed and the manure, and that combination there with just the seaweed and the manure. You don't have to add the salt because it's a seaweed. But if we don't use a seaweed, sometimes we put in a little nature salt, sea salt. But because you have the seaweed, you don't need to do that. They just combine the two. And it could be like one small plastic, like a handbag, to a gallon, not a gallon, but a big drum. The blue drum them, the drum them that you get from overseas, when you get them little home barrels of water, and about a one bag of manure that could soak there for a little bit, and then you strain it, and then you feed the plants with that. That will help a lot with that. So we're just trying to apply it better, because we recognize that it could be a real boom. So these are how we go with plants.
I would like to touch a little bit different to what the elder said. That was a blessed to know. At least, that's a good remedy. But all farmers have to make sure they build soil structure, right? Because if you have a healthy structure, you don't have to even study much about even fertilizing. Fertilizing is only when you're trying to feed that plant with a specific amount of like nitrogen or potassium. But that's limited for what the plant needs. That's just maybe the macronutrients. But it's so much of micronutrients that is important for the plant to absorb. Because if the plant do not absorb these nutrients, you can't get it back from the plant, right? And the soil naturally having all of what it needs. It just need, because God is perfect, he have what you call microbes, fungus, different nematodes and these things in the soil,
bacteria and so on.
Bring about these nutrients that the plant roots can absorb it. Because we look at the jungle, right? Let me take the mountain for example. The mountain, nobody do nothing for the mountain.
Exactly.
No time. No, I don't know which day. You maybe cut a tree down and take a mountain.
Self-replenishing.
Yeah, and all they do is drop the leaves on the ground and it's pieces.
They rot.
They decompose.
The bacteria.
And they feed the life in the soil. And they release the nutrients back to the root. So soil structure is the first and the most important thing, because it doesn't matter. If you don't have a soil structure, you must do what the elder's speaking about, and it's a lot of work, right? But if you have a soil structure, you don't even have to add enough fertilizer. Composting, you're going to bring it as sort of like a fertilizer, because that's what it is. Even though you turn the manure, you only could feed the plant until they get broken down by the same microbes, right?
Yeah,
so
talking about composting, on one of my visits to your farm, I noticed that you do a lot of composting. Tell us about that.
Yeah, composting you have so many beneficial. It's a way to get rid of your wastage, and is a good way to add back the microbes. Because it ain't really much of a fertilizer it is, but it's a compact microbe. It like getting a vitamin then, like we buy maybe Centrum.
Give you a side texture.
Yeah, and it help. Yeah, and the elders say give you a certain texture. It help suppress also weeds, right? Because weed is our biggest challenge, next to maybe the pest and the monkey. But
farming is like that.
Composting really allow you to mix up what you have there as waste material, leaves, grass, scrap from the kitchen, giant green, and you have it to a certain moisture. We cover ours to prevent loss of water, and at the same time too much of water from heavy rain, because it's too much of liquid can kill certain microbes, and too dry you definitely going to kill everything. So we cover it to protect decomposing. In the mountain area, the big trees, the canopy of the trees, that will protect the sun from evaporating the elements a lot more faster. So we kind of mimic, because we don't have trees to cover these heaps. We have to cover them with tarps to really help and structure it as they go forward. And we have to keep turning it to make sure that certain heavy material are put in the center that they could be eaten up by these microbes. So our approach is a little different to most farmers. Even though we have, as the elder was speaking about liquid fertilizer, we're trying to more we call regenerate the soil. Regenerate in agriculture by trying to put back the amount of organic matter, humus, where we want to call the bush back into the soil.
The plant uses it up and
replenish it. And it help deal with erosion. It help make the soil even more porous to drainage. It's perfect.
It has a light aerated feel to the soil.
And in the hot days, because we have a lot of hot days, it help keep the surface of the soil cool. That help prevent plants from drying out.
And I like something you said earlier, that mulching also is an organic way of getting rid of waste. So, for example, you get some vegetables, you peel them, you eat your bananas, and you have the peel being left back. You get a mango, and the skin you might not eat, and all those different bits and pieces of organic material. We sometimes just simply dump them. But then I see you guys take that and turn it back into where it came from, and benefiting where it came from, because you take these things and you put them to mulch, you get them to, and the thing about it, the mulching, you can see the activity that's taking place, because if you stick your hand into the mulch, you realize it's hot. Which means a lot of activity is going on there in terms of bacteria breaking it down and restructuring it, so that it can go right back into the soil and become a part of the production of new organic material. That's admirable. But tell us about your water supply there. I noticed that you have what I would call your own water supply.
Well, we have different with we call it harvest. You want to talk about that, Mackin?
We have both. Our main supply is still really from the actual government.
Okay.
So we pay a monthly bill for that directly.
Right.
But we also have a supply from our water collection cistern that we set up, which is really a concrete structure to collect the water. You know, and it's actually about a 16 by 30, cut in half. So each area gonna be 15 by 16, technically, in feet. In feet, I'm talking. So it's a big structure. So we can collect enough water for even half of the village, or maybe even more. So some of that water actually goes down to certain areas of the farm where we actually, have plants growing there, still. So there's times where these plants are going off a naturally fed water, even after the rainfall. We have to set up the system better, because in certain areas you have to actually put a stopcock in certain areas so that the water don't contaminate the other water, and make sure you have the water running the way that you want it. So, but we already have certain plots that is being used by this water.
And most of it is gravity fed from the system.
And we have a pump attached to it, but we haven't used the
About
pump
what
in a while,
kind of gallon capacity would that system be like?
If you could set up the whole garden with that there, really. But it's just that sometimes, if the water run out, you can't lock off your system. You should have your system.
Maybe 80,000
and then
gallons.
You still don't want to all the pipe.
It's about that. It's a lot of water. You ask the amount of water thing you can hold, Maccabi.
Like how much gallons? You have an estimate.
It's a lot of water, though.
Thousands of gallons.
He said you could feed the community, and that's all.
That's what I'm saying.
What you said the whole thing is 16 by
30 is a lot.
16
and
by
the height.
30.
And then you have to.
And the height is how was the height?
At least 9 to 10 feet high.
By 10, 16 by 30 by 10.
Yes, it's incredible. So when you put in them numbers, it's millions of gallons.
But rainwater for organic farming is really the only water we're supposed to use, really. It's just that, as the elder saying, sometimes because the government water is still a little more, like to say, dear, regular, feasible. We have to go to it. But because we do organic farming, the government water is really kind of negative to what we're doing because it's made to kill the for we to drink it, having chlorine or fluoride to kill bacteria.
Yeah.
But you don't want bacteria to die in the soil, so when you use that water, they kind of reversing what we're trying to do. So having, with the elder speaker about the water dam, I having containers, barrel, drums, black containers.
But you know,
it's better, and it cut the cost.
When you say that, I often reflect that when you look at places like golf courses, let's say, you know, they have an extensive sprinkler system and they use the water supply that they have there to water and they water them extensively. Every morning they turn on the sprinklers and they water and they water and they water. But I have often noticed that despite all of this watering, with whatever water supply they have for the golf course, let a good shower rain fall, and you see a difference in the grass of the golf course. Just a good soaking shower of rain, and there's a miraculous change in the whole appearance. And I even noticed that from my own experience in terms of gardening at home. If you use the pipe water with a hose to spray plants, they'll do all right, and so on and so on. But then a shower of rain in between, and suddenly the plants take on a completely different aura.
Yeah, because the nutrients coming from the soil, and then it dissolves and it goes back up in the air, and then the nutrients.
And when the rain is falling, it picks up things out of the atmosphere.
Yeah, in the air itself.
We have a thing called hydrogen. You have a part of the chemical within the rainwater named hydrogen. You can't get it in the pipe water, and that's what really one of the biggest difference between the both waters. That's why if you're going to use the pipe water to do something naturally, you have to give it at least 24 hours in a drum that it could evaporate the fluoride and the chlorine.
Because those are.
Otherwise, you're wasting what you're doing. You know, because it's like whatever goes down when you turn the fluoride and the chlorine, they kill this bacteria. Hydrogen is important as a part of our intake. So, as the elder saying, is certain chemicals in the soil, and this here got there, and it only make it better. But the pipe water kill everything because it was set to kill bacteria and microbes. So what you're saying is a good example of what you see with the golf course.
Yes. So the stuff that you produce, do you supply it to supermarkets and shops and so on, or is it just available at the farm for people to come and get?
Yeah, well, technically, I'm the president of the co-op, ready to hand over to the next president as soon as possible. Not because of any bad feeling, just because of reality. As also the head of marketing. So the co-op will have to be able to have more members so that we can have more growth in certain areas, so that one person don't have to take on different positions all the time. You know, so these are improvements. I know you ain't asking that question, but I say it, and I say it publicly still too, because a lot of other cops go through this, but they want to go through it in silence. So we ask people to become part of the cops and be a productive member of the cops still. And when you are a part of a cop, remain that productivity until the very end, because at the end of the day, it's a commitment. It's like a marriage. You know, it's for better or for worse. We can't be in the middle of the cop and wavering either. You see what I'm saying? And so I'm the marketing person too as well, and we have contracts with particular persons. I'm not gonna call nobody names still, right? Companies, and we also have another person, another agent who's on the marketing area goes out and sell to persons in the community. I also sell in persons in the different communities as well too. But I realize because of the contracts that we have with these other engagements, sometimes that become a little hard, and even sometimes a little burdensome. Not that we can't do it, but our initial stage is really to feed our own. So we still always cherish a want to come to the farm now and make it easier on us. Just come to the farm and buy. You're gonna get organic food, and sometimes for a cheaper price than even the non-organic food. So it's better, and you get deals at the farm.
And you're fresh.
And then you get to even see the farm sometime with a little walk around, maybe even for free. So we encourage the persons take the farm as part of their life. And I think that's happening now more, and a lot of things that we're doing, increasing the persons coming to the farm. So that will help us a lot with the marketing. We wouldn't have to go out that much, you know. So we're encouraging persons to come to the farm, because there's a lot of persons on the farm working. And even if I'm not there, somebody else is not there, there's always somebody there, and you can get what you want if you come to the farm. You know, so we still would take the time out and go out to those who would want the food, because some people prefer organic food and just depend on us. We have customers that come to us every week and they don't want to eat nothing else. You know, they want to just organic food as much as possible. So we're happy that we created this, because it wasn't for us alone, it was for the people. And we as farm members have to even do more on the farm. You see it?
Yeah. Now I noticed you talk about contracts. I mean, you have contracts with
we have contract with big organizations where we make a weekly salary, a comfortable weekly salary.
From the
even
produce on the farm.
Even on the contracts. And with this contract, we didn't just hold this for us. We went out and we encouraged other backyard gardeners to farm. We encourage other farmers to farm organic. So we're trying to create a system for our country, because we're not thinking about us. We think we want to
so because you keep using the word co-op, so it's not just you alone.
Yeah, but
it's
the
a
other
group
crops,
of other people.
I'm a little disappointed in the other crops. They're still sticking to the non-organic methods, so we can't do much trading with them, even though we want to. We can't do much trading with them. So we have to deal with the backyard gardens and those other farmers that decide that they want to do it organic. Because we want to be honest with the people too. We want to be able to give them the food, and we know that the food is conscious.
Yes.
We don't want to give people cancer when we give them a piece of potato to eat. When the man take the tomato and put it and then they forget to wash it, we don't want them talk about the belly hurt them and them thing there. We don't want that for the people. A lot of people getting sick, and the reality is from the vegetables. It's not even the meat sometimes. Sometimes it's the meats too. But the vegetables, them are not going good. When you have vegetables and then you're going to talk about you have to spread gramazone inside the vegetable, and then, and it don't have fruits on it.
You poison people.
Yeah, straight up.
And yourself,
if government was supposed to actually, that they had started a process where they was trying to test food, but because all the damn food them test negative, them and they had to end up just stop the whole process.
Except ours,
except for everyone. So let's get real with this thing. Let's go organic.
Yeah, man.
Organic got to be
save our people.
We got to save our people's life.
Yeah, man. But to add to the elder, and then he's gonna get passionate, because he really is passionate about organic farming. But we do a list. We have a list that we have every Monday. We compile all of our available vegetables and fruits from the different, as you talk about the different entities, different farmers, but they're organic. So we have this comprise where we are able to send it to customers who want to just have an idea. There's a lot of things that we have, maybe over 50 items on the list, herbs, different, even byproducts too. So, and we do deliveries, as he was kind of really saying, he's the head of the movement, but we do deliveries. We have a lot of coconut water, and we have the real natural coconut water. We ain't watering it down our coconuts. So what we're saying to people for real, as the elder making it, if you really want to change in how you go about eating, you can come. And even to know the recipes and that we have, because we don't have no secret. When we have tours, you could say, well, you want to learn something, and you could pay like even $10, I think he charges, a little bit of money to learn. Even like a cashew.
25.
A cashew, 25, okay, well, it's even cheap, maybe 10 years, 9 years. But we teach, we don't hide nothing. So if you want to learn how to cook something that we cook, we can teach it to you. And as I say, we always open also for opinions, So yeah, we have different ways that you can come and source the food, but we guarantee fresh. Because when you look at fresh, no supermarket in here could say they have the fresh food most of the time, because they have to come from overseas. They have to be reaped first.
And that's
they have to be packed.
About a week process at least before this stuff get here.
Yeah, and a week before they left the port.
Yeah.
A week before the supermarket put them on the shelf, so they get 3 weeks, then a month they make it a chance. So imagine you have something there a month old. You put down a tomato here, you can just turn to water into 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we have it there fresh. And sometimes we don't, I think sometimes maybe the elders say that we have markets, so take up the food. What we are ready to see is more of our people getting more of our food. So we could tell the big companies that he said we have contract with,
And
it's
a lot,
okay.
but
Right,
still,
because we
yeah,
still have the interest for our people. That's what our farmers said for is our people.
Okay, sounds good.
I ain't even gonna go there, but I still have to say that even though I'm here having this interview, this one the most saddest moment in my life, cause my brethren get killed the other day, and I would still have to make a plea to the person who killed my brethren, which is high grade, or Ricardo Marsham, which is condolences to the family. My heart grieving still, and I know I heart grieving still, and I haven't even been able to come over because I just don't know how to do it. It's like we gotta stop the killing of each other. When we Africa being to this, we in the Caribbean, our geopolitical situation is very bad, having been right there by the United States, and they're sending threat to our governments. Our geopolitical situation is very bad. The least we could do is try to live together and try to just do the best that we can for each other, not to be taking each other's life. The brethren have his wife pregnant. He got about 2 or 3 other youths. How that youth they now ain't gonna know the father? They ain't gonna know the father. They ain't gonna come up and see the father. People killing people and not understanding the dynamics and what they're creating resentment, retribution. So if the person don't come in now, these people might want to retaliate, so you're going to make other brethren now go and hurt other people and mess up their life because they could get catch and go jail. So when you look at the socio dynamics of a death, it's very, very bad and sad because everybody is in a mix of. It's like a betrayal.
Trauma.
It's a traumatic experience. Do you see? I could imagine how I feel. Imagine how Empress feel. All yesterday, sad in my household. Me use them distraught. Can't even function on the schoolwork. Everybody's like family in St. Kitts. We gotta stop this killing. We gotta stop. It was going so good. Irrespective of whatever the problem is, you must go find somebody you could talk about these problems. We cannot take each other's lives like this. It doesn't make sense, and it's hard to go back to life normal when these things happen. It destroys the family of the person who get murdered, and also the victim, and also, which is the victim, and also the person who commit the murder. Because the mothers and the fathers now got to spend thousands of dollars to a lawyer that actually now only represent him for the money most of the time because they want the person locked up still anyway because sometimes they feel like the man them guilty. And sometimes they take innocent man out of jail too. So what's the benefit to the community to kill somebody? There's no benefit to the community. It's a heinous act. It's a selfish act. It's a condemnable act. You see it? So I putting out there that they use them stop kill each other, and in the schools them. People going in schools and abusing teacher and vexing up with the teacher, threatening teachers and them things there. It got to stop. How you gonna go to a school where the people them sacrificing their life to teach you because the money small? You're not even good enough to go there. It's a love of the work is why they're going to there for, to try help you. And then you're going to be so disrespectful to the teachers. How they going to function? You can't function in a school when people want to have fights. The youths them got to stop what them do. The parents them need to have more discipline and control over their youths them. I don't know how we're going to do it. They're having all these lot of programs, but sometimes the programs them now work. I'm not against the program. I think it's good for the youths them, most of these programs. But we need to get the youths them to think about stop hurting each other. And this wasn't a youth who did this. This was a person who would have been bigger. You see it? So we asking anybody who know about this situation to come clean with this energy here, because it's like it will stop other people from getting hurt. And it will help our community solve these problems. We got to stop being scared. of what is going on and trying to say, we not talk this, we not talk that. We got to really, it take a community to raise a child, but it also take a community to raise itself. Everybody in the community have to work together for the benefit of the community. You see it? And the police, them have to be more vigilant in their work, in doing their work. You know? I'm not saying aggressive, you know. I say vigilant. Because when you don't solve a crime, the crime remaining out there. And we want it to stop. We want all the killing to stop. We want all the murderers to cease. And we don't want no reprisal. You see it? So we want things to be better.
Okay. Yeah. Ras Sankofa. Yeah, thanks for that very passionate plea. And I hope that people realize that the seriousness of what is being created by these kinds of behaviors that seem to be emerging in our society. And let's do something, as Rasan goes, to love one another, just be together, one people. Because a people divided against itself will fall. So, yes, gentlemen, thanks for being here today. Thanks for giving us your insights into so many things. And we wish you all the best of luck with your cooperative and with your Gideon Force Organic Farms and your movement. And it's not the first time, and we have you on this program, and hopefully we'll have you again sometime for something else. Our time is up now, so you have just 15 seconds to...
Yeah, Ola, Alan, I couldn't leave without telling you personally thank you and the Department of Cooperatives for all the assistance that we have received. It would have been real bad for me. And from the Department of Cooperatives, the Small Business Unit, I would take thanks for all them tent, them chairs for the elderly, and for all the events that we have. Thanks for your support, 100%. The Aging Department, Janelle Tafari, thank you very much for your assistance still as the Permanent Secretary responsible for that. And Bo would like to say
I would just say, I think this Saturday coming going to be, I think the Black Liberation Movement.
Yeah,
so I think...
in the square, the Nyabengi Black Liberation, in the square as usual, we ask the people to come and support who can support
this coming Saturday?
This Saturday, yeah, for sure. The Nyabengi and Sparks and all them brethrens there same way. And over in Nevis too, they're celebrating that same day over in Nevis as well. So I have to actually move from there, do a little tune here, and then go over there as an artist and perform over there. So I give thanks for giving me the opportunity for that too.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, and it's a pleasure having you. And ladies and gentlemen out there, if you want to contact the Gideon Organic Farm, it's 664-4770 or 664-4695. Peace out from Heritage Matters, and see you next time.